G'day guys, and today it's time to talk about Project Veritas. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of their most recent huge important release concerning the Epstein cover-up. They've had leaked ABC News insider recording one of their journalists or former ABC News anchors, Amy Robach, talking about how she had a story on Epstein for 3 years, but ABC News wouldn't report on it. I'm sure you're all aware of that. That's being talked about widely within the independent content community on Bitchute and that sort of thing. So obviously I was going to jump on this and talk about this, but when I watched the video on Veritas, I sort of realized a lot of people are going to be talking about this. Me adding one more voice isn't going to do a whole lot. And I stumbled upon an interesting perspective in the comments, which I'm going to present to you today. So naturally, since this is a very important political story pertaining to a relevant and acute issue, which is the mysterious, i.e. fake, suicide of one Jeffrey Epstein, who ran one of the most prolific pedophilic human trafficking organizations in modern history, if not the entire world of all time, you'd obviously think, this is a huge story and it's got such a short amount of views in such a large number of views, I should say, in such a short period of time. So obviously this is an important story. You'd expect it to see it on the trending page. And jumped on the trending page to have a look to see what's trending around the world, important news. Obviously, Project Veritas is here, and unfortunately, I had to go scrolling a bit because Java's got banned from Fortnite. Seems kind of important. There were backyard games battles to be done. That also seemed kind of important. But perhaps we look a bit further down, and there'll be Project Veritas will be there somewhere. So we have Lantern Rogue, who takes precedence over Project Veritas because she's a creator on the rise, and we see she has a few videos with a few tens of thousands of views. That happened 2 weeks ago. So 16k views 2 weeks ago apparently trends more than 1.8 million views from a pertinent political story in the last 24 hours. Okay, righto. I get the feeling that this trending page may be a little selectively chosen. But perhaps I'm just wrong. I don't know a whole lot about YouTube and tech and that sort of thing. I'm pretty tech illiterate myself, so let's just, keep looking. So we have very important news that I'm pleased to report on, that a British girl has tried an Australian swap box. Okay, so that was 500,000 views 3 days ago. Still trending. Okay. We obviously have PewDiePie getting a spot up there, the Black Prince of YouTube. They have to give him some deference at some point, but he's pretty important. So let's keep looking. Okay, so we have KSI and Logan Paul revealing their biggest mistakes. I sort of vaguely even recall who those people are. 1.5 million views 11 hours ago. Okay, that's about Project Veritas. We must be getting close if we're sort of approaching the same viewership level and time ago. Not as cool as Cool Girl Beauty Hacks, because obviously that's pretty important. We got the Tonight Show. That's pretty important, knowing your bro. I'm sure that's a cool little comedy skit. Leroy the Savage at World Cup Finals 2019. 726 views 1 day ago. What's going on here, guys? It seems that videos with less views that were published longer ago are taking priority over Project Veritas. There's no real, obviously, no real important political stories here because YouTube is not primarily a political site by design. It's, for entertainment and lots of different things. But here we actually have a news story. We've got some important news. It must be really important if it takes precedence over the fact that ABC News over in America sat on a story concerning Jeffrey Epstein, concerning everything that we now know for 3 years. McDonald's CEO fired over relationship with employee. 250k views 18 hours ago. So this story came out roughly the same time as the Project Veritas release. Within the same hour, it has 1/6 of the views, but apparently that's trending and Project Veritas is not. Okay, let's ask a little question to the audience here. Who here within the last month has been actively taking part in, keeping track of, and keeping up to date with the fact that a McDonald's CEO was dating one of his employees? Has that been important? Has that been controversial? Has that been, in any way, shape or form particularly suspect? Was anyone worrying about that? Leave your leave your comment down below if you were worrying about this sort of thing, but I certainly wasn't. Alright, I'm getting kind of sick of this comedy routine here. We just look at this and we just see a bunch of bullshit. This is all fucking G-rated, family-friendly bullshit that YouTube essentially wants to present to the world to show that it is a G-rated, family-friendly platform. Now, by no means is YouTube like a serious political heavyweight hitter, as we've seen, but looking here, we can clearly see that the trending page, as you all probably already knew before I started on this spiel, is not actually about trending videos. It's all from sanitized content creators who are only going to present G-rated stuff. I doubt you're going to see many swear words, controversial humor, that sort of thing in here. It's all pretty safe stuff. We have this dude, Massey Rooch ex-hooligans, I guess that's I don't know, a music video or something. 360 views 6 days ago, but apparently that's trending more than Project Veritas. Alright. Well, you might say to yourself, as you said, Dexter, YouTube, it's not a specifically political or news site, so perhaps we need to look elsewhere for it to be in some sort of important trending, look at this is a really important story sort of spot. So let's have a look at a few Australian, journalistic outlets. We always get told that they're so trustworthy and popular. We have a look at the Sydney Morning Herald, which is independent. That's good, because if they're independent, then they're not going to run ads. Except they do. Anywho, obviously we see nothing here because they don't want to talk about the story. We look at 9 News Australia. I'm pretty sure it was 9 News who I saw the story from. Again, they just talked about it for a few minutes and then didn't even talk about Project Veritas and just launched off into something else. Nothing. We look at 7 News. Nothing. Oh, look, Iraq resumes live fire against protesters. That's a pretty important story. That's pretty wild. But you're seriously going to tell me with all your staff and all your coverage, you've got all this time to talk about local news, sports, politics, finance, entertainment, lifestyle, like all this stuff, but you don't have time to write up even a quick article about this Epstein cover-up. Look, no one gives a shit about the weather in comparison to the Epstein story. But maybe I'm wrong again. Maybe it's not appropriate to look at the actual websites themselves. Maybe it takes time for these stories to be written up. They have to be thoroughly fact-checked, and that definitely happens. They have to be edited to make sure there's no naughty words in there. So perhaps we should have a look at the social media profiles, because social media posts, they're pretty quick and easy to make. You could just make a quick post update. So let's have a look at 7 News Australia on Facebook and see what important stories that they want us to know about, because surely after all the trials we've been through, the Project Veritas story will be here for sure. So let's have a look. What's important news within this day on 7 News Australia? Okay, someone hurling garlic apparently. That's pretty important. Like, look, we need to put that up there. It's pretty important. Yeah, a 25-year-old quarter pounder is more fucking important than a cover-up by ABC News America. 7 News, Australia's most trusted news source. They certainly don't trust you with knowing what's going on in the world. It's pretty clear that they're not going to talk about this story for several reasons. Now, if you wanted to go, right to the political top, you could say, obviously, some people are implicated in this Jeffrey Epstein thing and they don't want to talk about it, and they themselves are spiking news stories because they're implicated in some way. They are pedophiles, or they know pedophiles and they're protecting them, and that sort of thing. That is a possibility. I would, however, say it's more likely that establishment media outlets such as 7 News, such as 9 News, the Sydney Morning Herald, they don't want to talk about their competitors, like Project Veritas. Obviously, they're competing for eyeballs and that sort of thing, and these news sites, in their stagnatic tabloid ways, refuse to do actual journalism, whilst James O'Keefe does. He will insert undercover reporters into news organisations to get that absolutely juicy stuff that the public deserves to know about, such as this story he's just released, and these news outlets, so-called, never bothered to do that thing really anymore. Also, they don't want to talk trash talk their own team, so to speak. So if they ran a story talking about ABC News so incompetent over in the United States, these establishment journalistic outlets can't be trusted, well, people look at them and say, hey, but you're an establishment journalistic outlet. So it puts egg on their face, and it's a sort of death by association thing. So that's at least 2 reasons why I think they can't talk about it. But again, it's certainly possible that these higher up in the chain of command. We've got multinational owners to these businesses, corporatized, sanitized. These people are into some shady shit, and we know a lot of people visited Epstein's Island. It is possible, but I think it's more likely that they simply do not want to talk good of their competitors and talk ill of their fellow allies in the mainstream media. And obviously, YouTube doesn't want to give James O'Keefe or Project Veritas any airtime at all, because YouTube is more interested in becoming a sanitized, family-friendly platform. And I honestly think, again, we don't have any particular evidence for this, but I think that YouTube and the other big tech companies are being threatened behind the scenes by corporatized media elements on both sides of the corridor, political ideology speaking, politically speaking, I should say, because obviously people on YouTube are out competing people in the mainstream media. We can deliver content quicker, more effective. It's more entertaining because we're not subdued by regulations. I can swear, I can say fuck. It's really entertaining, and that sort of thing. They're being out competed, so they're leaning on these tech companies to essentially censor their own users, alienate their own fan base, so that these people don't lose out on their slice of pie. So yes, it's absolutely atrocious that News in Australia and YouTube refuses to allow this story to be shown to the public. It was very disappointing in my own life when I actually put this out on Snapchat, because I was like, how the fuck do I tell everyone about this? It's really important. I realized, hey, people have me on Snapchat. And people didn't even know who Epstein was. I've had to explain that to a few people. And it's in part the fault of these big tech companies and these mainstream media outlets refusing to run with the story. They're not being journalistic, they're being just partisan. Thanks all for sticking around, and have a good one.